Donald Trump is redefining what it means to be conservative. But is that a good thing or a bad thing? Look, Donald Trump has been a blessing for the Republican Party. They stopped Hillary Clinton from winning in 2016. They derailed Joe Biden, condemning him to a one-term presidency. And they took out Kamala Harris for bonus points. It is the end of DEI, big government spending, and respect for countries that Americans deem less favourable. Think more Ukraine and less Israel. The Trump effect has made big waves outside of America too. The anti-EU, anti-NATO skeptical view has become somewhat contagious. Just look at Europe with Hungary's Viktor Orban, for example. It has emboldened leaders who have always been suspicious of these big groups. So when Trump walked back into the White House, he had the electoral vote and the popular vote. You would think that conservatives across the world would be cheering. Surely this means that the tide is turning and people are just going more right-wing. Right? Wrong. As Trump puts a wrecking ball through what it means to be right-wing, voters across the world are actually shifting away from the right. You know, it is changing. Back when I was a mere millennial child of the 90s, what it meant to be conservative back then was very different to what it means now. Back then, conservatives championed free trade, globalization, respect for the courts. There was talk of economic progress and promoting democracy abroad. The conservatives liked churches and nuclear families. But under Trump's brand of conservatism, things are different. There is a backlash against free trade. There is suspicion of the courts. Economy does get its time in conversations, but the right seem to be more focused on fighting cultural wars. And as for conservative values, well, one of Trump's poster boys is Elon Musk, a man who has multiple baby mamas and who openly takes ketamine. I don't know about you, but that's not exactly the conservative values of the 90s that I remember. But you might just be saying, hold on, move on, things have changed. What it means to be conservative now has evolved from the 90s. And you might be right. After all, who am I to judge who's in Trump's team? I'm not American, and also Trump came in with a massive majority. He was voted by the Americans, and we should respect that. So does that mean that Trump has redefined what it means to be right-wing? Well, he would say yes, but I would say wrong again. Association with Donald Trump has been like radiation poisoning for conservatives abroad. So Trump has given you the thumbs up. What might have once been a ticket to victory is now more like the kiss of death. Take Canada, for example. The Conservatives were doing quite well when Justin Trudeau was the Liberal leader. Polling was looking good for the Conservatives. And then, well, two things happened. One, Mark Carney came into power and he became the Liberal leader, running for the next leader of Canada. But more importantly, Trump came in. Trump talked about tariffs and making Canada the 51st state of America. And as you would imagine, Conservative support for Canada collapsed. Association with the right and Trump suddenly became not very popular. It doesn't matter how charismatic or how popular you are as a leader, if you start talking about invading another country, that country is not going to identify with your political alignment. And we can see it here in the opinion polls. As Canada's election becomes an upcoming event, the support for the Conservatives has gone a little bit downhill. It also seems that in Australia, voters have soured on Trump. One reason is tariffs. Voters show that they were not impressed with Trump's blanket 10% tariffs on countries including Australia. To Trump, it was a master plan in economics, but to the average Australian, it was a child science school project that threatens to blow up the economy. The Conservative candidate, confusingly called the Liberal Party leader, Dutton, has even started moving away from mimicking Trump's policies. Once inspired by DOGE, Doge cuts, Dutton is now moving away from Doge. Opposition in Australia even took the chance to nickname Dutton Dodgy Dutton. Dodgy Doge. You get it? Actually quite catchy. And so as the Conservative support starts to dwindle, the support for the Labour Party in Australia has now risen as well. And then there is Poland. Now, they've just had their parliamentary elections last year. It is now time for the presidential elections, and the right-wing candidate looks like he's not going to win either. Poland could have been a cultural breeding ground for Trump. They have some of the strictest abortion laws in Europe and are not afraid to fight the cultural battles against, for example, the LGBT community. But Trump's talk of abandoning Europe and abandoning NATO hits very close to many Polish. You need to remember that with Poland, Russia is on its doorstep, and that makes politics very different for Poland. Poland sees Russia as a genuine threat, and you cannot blame them. If you've had a neighbor who had a history of going into your house and robbing you, and that neighbor was now robbing other neighbors, you would start to think that your security needs to go up a little bit. And so for Poland, NATO support and Europe alignment is key to security. Conservatives in Poland would have once thought that being EU skeptic was trendy, but not now. Likewise, with the cost of living crisis and housing prices, many in Poland are now interested in major reforms rather than cultural battles. Trump has also signalled support for right-wing parties in Germany, for example, AfD. And while AfD did pretty well in the last German election, no other politician or political party wants to work with them in Germany. Trump also championed Le Pen in France. Free Le Pen, he has said on X and his Truth social media thing. But France are sending Le Pen to jail, so not much effect there either. In America, being conservative is big trendy stuff right now, but he seems unable to import that view across the world. Trump still has a full term in power in America, and he will be doing what he can to encourage Europe and the rest of the world to vote more right-wing. After all, if he has Trump friends across the world, that makes enabling policies and deals and global politics just easier for him in general. But so far it's not really working. So far most countries are saying, actually stay out of my business, I want to vote for who I want to vote for. It seems, unlike America, the Trump effect is not so much a sweeping sensation. Instead, there's still some more work to be done.